Chicago. It's May 29th, 2013, and you're listening to another episode of Bites Over Bagel! It's Chicago's favorite tech morning show. With me in the studio, as always, is one Miss Heather Brown.
Hey, girls.
One Mr. Brett Mackey.
Pardon me.
And everyone's favorite nemesis, Dave Seidler.
Excuse me.
I'm your host.
That's what I said. You did? You just said it a different way.
I know.
Pardon me.
Oh, well, I said excuse me.
Danger in the studio.
You're excused. You're excused.
I'm your host, John Osler. We got another great show for you. On today's show is...
Emerson Spartz.
Emerson Spartz.
For those who didn't get that. For those
From
who didn't
Spartz. We've got a lot of show per usual. Oh, man, Emerson takes us down at the end there. Just stay tuned into this interview. We got a lot of show, so let's get on to it. The title of today's episode is Caloric.
Oh.
Aye.
Are you a Ruby on Rails developer, talented UX engineer, or simply passionate about open source technology?
Yeah.
Well, Innova is a growing e-commerce company who's always looking for top tech talent to join us in all fields. To learn more, well, you know where to go. Check them out at innova.com and click careers. That's ENOVA.com. And what do you want to click, boys?
Careers. It's now that part of the show we call Chicago.
Tick.
Start up.
Madness!
This is our weekly bracketology for Chicago startups. We all pitch 4 startups per week for 8 weeks. Whoever moves on gets a sweet prize pack and a featured interview on the show. Brett, my dear Lord, let's kick it off.
We don't know what to expect.
Oh, lordy, lordy, lordy.
Oh,
Lordy. I'm doing a stew share this week. It's a recipe site. Oh, good Lord, you're saying, right? It's another recipe site, really? Aren't there like 40,000 of these, Heather? Is
At
that what you're
least
saying?
40,001, but...
There's actually 40,003.
Oh.
Yeah. But whatever. This one's a little bit different, a whole different deck of recipe cards, if you will. This is a community potluck web application for recipes. So if you don't mind sharing your recipes, which you've done before maybe on a website, you don't mind sharing them with everyone, you can do that. And it also has kind of a secret cooking cave for sharing just your long storied family recipes with those you love. So you get to choose who you want to share it with, and you use Facebook to select those people. And away you go, right? Right?
I got no friends on Facebook.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I guess I'm not
Tough
sharing
call.
It's
recipes.
going to be a lonely dinner table, Dave. It's going to be a lonely dinner table.
As usual.
But I'll tell you what, I'm interested in this one. I am. Because believe you me, Tecaros, I have a few recipes I don't want nobody knowing a thing or two about unless they're supposed to know about. And Stew Share lets me do just that, okay? I can build my own little munchin' mafia to hold on to the family secrets over there. Yeah. And I'm a stone cold serious when it comes to the culinary code. And if great-grandma Cipriani tells great-grandma Moroni to tell my mama me and not to tell anybody, but someone who sloshing around in a belly for 9 months about a recipe, well, then I ain't telling nobody, okay? I'm a stone cold serious, okay? In fact, before I got married, I had some of my secret recipes written up in a prenup with my wife, okay? Yeah. Keep the house girly, okay? Okay? But you're giving back the pork rub recipe, okay? Yep, sorry, Bobby, I'll be rubbing that all over my body, sleeping in the minivan. I'm warm, I'm all right. Don't worry about me. And I'm digging this little puppy here because it's a true MVP, okay? It's a bare bones interface with a little Pinterest presentation. And there's a whole bunch of recipes over there for public displays of affection, you know what I'm saying? But, those words weren't chosen by accident, okay? It might just be that me, but I think there's some people over there who are a little bit lonely, you know? They're scratching around for a date on this website, okay? So like this, get this, okay? Might just be me, but it's Brad Shannon, okay? She's got this little recipe. Semester of broad goat cheese pasta. Whoa, what? I'm getting a little hot over here. Heather, turn the oven off, okay? Heather, Well, it's a Mr. abroad, Heather, okay? Okay, what are you doing there? What else you do, okay? If it had anything to do with the goats, I don't want to know, baby. But okay, anyway, what about this guy, all right? Poor lonely guy here. Uncle Eric's tunnel of fudge recipe, okay? What in the world? I don't know. Everybody, tunnel of fudge cake, okay? Oh, the word cake, forgot. Anyway, maybe too weird, just me. The guy's lonely too. And then there's this, grandma's lemon poke cake. Poke cake, okay, Granny, I'm a married man, all right? But the cake, it looks so good. Looks good. So I'll tell you what, Granny, I'll give you 10 seconds in a dark closet with old Romeo over here, but you gotta throw in a glass of milk with that cake, okay? Okay, I don't know if it's just me, but there's a lot of folks over here, they're putting up good food, and maybe they're looking for a little love. So get yourself over there, give them some feedback. Dave Bracey built this thing, a local Chi-Town developer. Good guy, good kid. I'll be over there posting recipes, probably looking for more of these freaky deakies posting weird stuff, and you should too, okay? Vote them up at StewShare. Mamma mia.
And mamma mia.
All right. Well, have you guys ever?
Just take them.
Yeah. Have you guys ever wanted to get your hands on a bottle of wine that you couldn't find anywhere? John, you? Heather? Little day drinking, little barbecue. You had that
Yeah,
special.
I got some at my desk. So
Yeah, you do?
Feeling good?
I bet you had to go to a store to
Just
get
kidding,
that.
I don't know.
You
I
feel
did have to
low.
go to a store to get that.
Yeah,
That's
it
true.
sucks. It sucks.
Yeah, where else can I go, Dave?
Well, you can go to Winestyr.com. Wine, S-T-Y-R. You can order wine directly from wineries all over the country, get wine shipped straight to your doorstep without having to go to a store. Until,
legit.
Until recently, they did not have this. They had a law that made this not possible. You had to have a distributor take wine from the winery and take it to the store, and you had to go buy it. Well, not any longer. Go onto Winestyr.com, and you can order wine, read about the vineyards they come from, read about the wineries, look for pairings. If you want to do a little day drinking, a little barbecuing, maybe you have a little date night, John. Well, you can go on there. They have suggestions of what wines you should get. You order them up and get it shipped to your house. Heather, does that sound good to you?
That sounds great, Dave.
Yeah, sounds pretty awesome to me. What's even better is that shipping is only $10
Per bottle? Per order?
per order. But if you order over $100 worth, it's 1 cent.
Legit.
1 cent
You gotta
shipping.
stock up.
They got to charge something.
You gotta stock up.
Gotta charge something.
Covers
Check it out.
the,
Check it out, guys. Winestyr.com. It is an online marketplace for wines all over the world. You can buy them and get them sent straight to your doorstep.
Sweet. All right. Do you boys have any dogs? Any puppies?
I do.
No.
How many, Brett?
I got a one.
16? 14? What you got?
I just got the one.
Are you looking for new products for your dog?
Always.
Always. On
Beef stick chewies.
Beef stick chewies for sure. You're going to want to head over to Doggy Loot. It's the best way to find new products for your dogs.
Tell me more.
You like to spoil your dog, right?
Of course I do.
Well, this is great information. You'll discover new dog treats, toys, chews, all of that good stuff at highly discounted prices.
I like
so you can
that.
spoil your pup, and you don't have to break your pocketbook.
I hate breaking my pocketbook.
Wondering what kind of things you can fetch, Brett?
I am.
You can fetch a 10-pack of thick, low-odor bully sticks for the great price of only $25. And they don't have 1 cent shipping. They have free shipping.
Oh, sorry, Monster.
It's true. So
Low
anyway,
odor.
head on over to doggyloot.com to check them out, and also vote for Doggy Loot at Doggy Loot. There you go, kids. John, what you got? What you want?
Ooh, well, this week's winner will be Reverb. Reverb. It is the marketplace for musicians. Think about this for a second, everyone. Here in Chicago, there's a startup, Reverb, created to, number one, establish a really good pricing guide for used musical equipment. This is mostly guitars and amps and drums and things like that. But think about that. When you are going on Craigslist or eBay or something like this and people are like, I want 10 grand for my guitar. You're like, really?
Really?
I mean, maybe you've got 10 grand.
I just saved
Maybe you do.
$50 on my dog shoes.
You did. You
Well,
saved $50.
exactly.
I just go in Brett's Alley.
Well, what's really nice is they're providing this free service for you to look up what really the price should be on your instrument. So whether you're selling or buying, it's just a nice tool for you guys. But in addition to that, they have a marketplace where you can actually list your guitar, drum set, things like this, and sell them on the site. So it makes it really easy for musicians all over the country to go in and search for, a particular type of brand, and you can buy it there on the website, and it'll basically coordinate the whole purchase process and the shipping.
2-cent shipping?
No.
What's the
Never.
shipping price?
5-cent shipping?
I think the shipping's up to the actual seller.
Ooh, tough call.
Yeah.
I don't think they actually inventory it.
David Colt really had a good idea with this one.
Yeah. So they are actually based out of the Chicago Music Exchange up on Lincoln, which has already an array of awesome gear. And so now they've got this marketplace for musicians, which is pretty awesome.
Is it for vintage gear?
There is vintage gear as well.
Nice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And particularly if you go through the site, there are some rare stuff on there. So definitely check that out. Especially if you're not in the Chicagoland area, I'd say, because, we get the deets here in Chicago. Mm-hmm. Bada boonski.
Bada boom.
So check out reverb.com. That's reverb, D-O-T-C-O-M. That's at reverb, D-O-T-C-O-M. Reverb.com. I know, right?
Ooh.
Interesting handle.
I like it.
Okay, so that's the 4 startups for this week. Now, how to vote? The easiest way to vote is go to bytorabagels.com. We'll show you the bracket, and there's a little vote button next to each startup. So that's the easiest way. And basically, that's going to create a tweet for you for that startup with the right hashtag. However, if you're a Western slinger and you like to do your own tweets customized to your pleasure, you can go onto Twitter and use the hashtag Chicago
Tech.
Startup.
Madness.
That's all one hashtag, Chicago Tech Startup Madness.
It's obnoxious.
So use that hashtag in combination with the startup's @ symbol. So, for instance,
At StuShare.
At Wine Stir.
At Doggy Loot.
and at reverb.com, reverb.com. So, that's all I have to do to vote, y'all. This concludes Chicago Tech Startup Madness.
Today's bagels are brought to you by New York City Bagel Deli Catering. If you're hungry, you want some bagels, you head on over there. They'll hook you up. Get some kettle baked goodness today. Dave Coffee.
Today's coffee is brought to you by Bow Trust. Check them out at bowtrust.com. You want some, girl?
Girl, I want some coffee.
Sleepwalking a world of doubt.
Joining us now in the studio is Emerson Spartz, CEO and founder of Spartz. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's start this thing off by giving the listeners a little background of who you are and what Spartz is.
Spartz is a company. We run a network of crowdsourced content websites. We get about 160 million page views a month. It's a young audience, 13 to 25-year-olds. Some of the more well-known sites would be OMG Facts, which is the #1 fact site. We have a website with funny iPhone autocorrects that went viral last year. We have the #1 Harry Potter website, which is what most people still know me from because I started it a really long time ago, and I've been doing it for a long time. I'm that guy.
Cool. Cool. You're Harry Potter.
Something like that.
You wished you were back like 12 years ago. You made
That is true.
Yeah, cool.
So were you just really excited about Harry Potter at the time? And you're like, I got to do something about this. Like, what made you start that?
So it was a combination of things. So first of all, I was 12. Important detail. It wasn't that I was so obsessed with Harry Potter that I had to make a website. It was more that I started. So when I was 12, I convinced my parents to let me drop out of school and start homeschooling myself. And I suddenly had a lot of free time.
Wait a second. Let's just stop right there.
Back it up. How did you?
How in the
raise your
world
Harry?
does that happen? Every kid wants to do that.
Yeah, I'm trying to get like $20 to the movies.
This guy's like, Mom, I'm working from home. I can't even work from home at work. This guy's not even going to school.
So I was a very atypical child. I was naturally very self-driven and inquisitive, and I wanted to learn everything there was to learn about the world. And in school, I was very bored. I was one of those kids who, in reading class, we'd have to read a chapter a week, and I would just read the whole book, and then I'd be sitting there twiddling my thumbs, being extremely bored. And so it wasn't that my parents were taking this crazy risk by letting me do it, because they knew that I was, if any kid could do it, it'd be me. I don't think it's a very good strategy for most people, but I was weird enough for it to work. So it wasn't a hard sell, actually. I think they may have incepted the idea in my mind.
Nice.
No, pro tip. Don't necessarily try this with your children, folks.
So now you're homeschooled and you start this website. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. So I actually started a whole bunch of crappy websites that are not very interesting, but Mugglenet wasn't the first one. I made a golf website called Extreme Golf, which I thought was very cool at the time. It had the X in it.
Ooh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I had a Simpsons website, but then the Harry Potter site. So at first it was just for fun, and then it became quickly not just for fun when I got really obsessed and I was like, I want to make the best Harry Potter site in the world. And then I started spending 10 hours a day working on it because I was so into it. Mm-hmm. And so Mugglenet, for kind of a quick highlight reel of what Mugglenet would eventually become, Mugglenet was the #1 Harry Potter site. We used to attract 50 million page views a month. We published 3 books, one of which was a New York Times bestseller. We had the #1 podcast in the world. And I also got a call from J.K. Rowling up out of the blue one day to represent the fandom for a personal interview with her at her house in Scotland. So I got to get a lot of great experience doing a lot of different things. I learned how to just lots of different skill sets. We hosted dozens of events, drawing thousands of people. I got a lot of management experience, managing a team of 120. And we used to go around the tour for all these events, living like rock stars. And it was crazy.
You were still 12?
Well, it was my whole adolescence.
Nice.
Started when I was 12.
Wow.
So Joe Rowling called you out of the blue, right? Like, just talk about that. Like, you got a call from her, right?
Right.
Like,
So it was.
What happened?
So it was 8:00 in the morning, and I was sleeping, and my dad came bursting in the room with this panicked look on his face and the phone in his hand, and he's like, "Emerson, it's you." I'm thinking, okay, why is some guy named Joe calling me at 8:00 in the morning?
Of course, first name basis.
Right. And so he hands me the phone, and I just woken up, so I sounded like Barry White. Hello. And I hear this very clipped British accent on the other end of the line. Hello, Emerson. This is Joe. Okay, hey, Joe Rowling, what's up? She wanted to know if I'd be interested in coming to her house in Scotland and interviewing her on the day of the release of the 6th book. Interested.
Cool.
Yeah.
No, wait. Now, the real story is, before we started, is that first you're like, no, I'm still sleeping. Can I call you back in an hour?
I played it cool. I played it cool, and I said, let me check my schedule.
Yeah.
Maybe I can fit you in.
Yeah, let me call you back. Throws the phone off the bed, just goes back to sleep.
Do you know who I am?
Do you know what time it is?
It's 8:00 on a school day. School morning. I don't get up till 8:30. That's awesome.
was that interview the most nerve-wracking thing in your life to that point? Were you more nervous for that interview than anything else, or were you okay?
No, I was actually a lot more nervous when the first time when I was managing a team at MuggleNet, and I thought that if people knew my age, that it would be very bad, because I had people working for me who were adults. They were college students and moms and stay-at-home moms and things like that. And so I was actually much more scared about that happening than I was about the interview, because by then I'd already had 4 years of experience. I was much older. There were 6 years at that point, 5, something like that. So, and she's also the coolest, most down-to-earth person. So I didn't, she made me feel very at ease. She's awesome.
Nice. What kind of strategies did you have to trick them into thinking you're older?
So I used to, well, first of all, I just never talked about, I just would kind of like steer the conversation away whenever people start talking about ages or change the subject. And when I would have to get on the phone, which I would try to always avoid whenever possible, if I was emailing with Warner Brothers or, these companies with real adults, I would try to keep everything to email and make excuses for why I couldn't get on the phone. And then if I did have to get on the phone, I would actually be like, hello.
That is so cool.
And I think back at it now, and I think they must have known for sure that I was some kid who's making his voice trying to sound deep, but
awesome.
is actually some kid. But I thought maybe they'll at least think I'm 14.
That is so cool.
What was happening with MuggleNet, like, as you started college? I know you went to Notre Dame. You didn't have to go, but you decided you wanted to. And so what was kind of happening as you went into college?
So
with MuggleNet and...
I made it a point to, before I went to school, I wanted to hand off as much of the day-to-day responsibility to the rest of my team as possible. So I worked actively to make sure that I was able to do that. So I could, instead of it being a full-time job, I could slip into more of an executive role and just be involved in high-level decisions. But otherwise, it was just running as it always had been, just without me being in the day-to-day.
So why did you decide to go to college? Like, where did that decision come from? I'm just curious why you didn't just keep, creating new companies and
Giving yourself A's.
Giving yourself A's. Like, what made you decide to go to college?
So I had a really bizarre, non-traditional self-education where I designed and developed my own curriculum, and I'd spent 7 years being home by myself for the most part. I was there with my brother, or two of my brothers for a part of the time. I have a brother who's 12 years younger than me, and it just seemed fun. I'd seen so many movies, the media, like college, very glamorized, and I was like, I'm going to go back to school and see what it's like. I got bored very quickly, very predictably, and I was going to drop out and start another company. And then I realized that I had this very unique opportunity in my hands, and I once again developed a separate curriculum from the curriculum I had at Notre Dame, which was a bit insane.
This was the speed reading thing you did for yourself? Yeah. Is that what you're talking about?
Yep.
Yeah, talk about that. That just blew my mind.
So when I first started homeschooling, part of my curriculum was my parents pretty much stayed out of my way, and they let me study whatever I wanted, but they had one rule that I had to read 4 short biographies of successful people every single day. And this is one of those things that I hated at the time. It was totally boring and dry and dull, but I'm so valuable. I'm so glad they made me do it, because just imagine what happens to your brain when you're 12 years old and you start spending several hours a day, every single day, immersing yourself into the lives of some of the most successful people of all time. You start to think that there's nothing you can't do.
Right.
And I started thinking really big. And I had this epiphany, and I thought to myself, if I can do all this and I'm only 12, imagine what I can do when I'm 17. Which feels like a very old age when you're 12.
Right.
And I decided I wanted to change the world. And I wanted to do it on a massive scale. So I went to go study lives of people that already changed the world to see what patterns I could extract from their experiences. And in doing this research, one conclusion I reached is that people who change the world tend to be extraordinarily influential before they change the world. So I realized that influence was inextricably linked to impact, or it's the kind of impact that I was interested in. So I spent a lot of time studying influence, and that led me to being interested in a specific type of influence, virality. And virality to me was this, I didn't know it was called that at the time, but to me, I thought if you understand how to make things go viral, that's the closest you can get to having a human superpower. You could tip elections, you could overthrow dictators, you could start movements, you could revolutionize industries. And so I had this lifelong fascination with influence and then eventually virality. And when I was at Notre Dame, what happened was I decided that I wanted to be able to study as many different things as possible before I started my next company. Because I knew that once I did that, I would be head down, grinding on that, and there's no way I'd be able to take a broad perspective on society. So I set a goal of reading 1 nonfiction book every single day until graduation. So business, politics, psychology, economics, technology, science, with a heavy bias towards psychology, neuroscience, cognitive psychology, etc. And it wasn't just books. It was going through SEC filings, 10Ks, research, abstracts, textbooks, studying thousands of individual businesses, looking for patterns. What do successful companies do differently than unsuccessful companies? Studying industries, everything from natural gas wholesaling to drywall contracting. I wanted to study every industry, and then I got through 60 of them, and I realized they're all kind of the same. And so I quit doing that. So it was a 3-part process. First part was reading, second part was reviewing, third part was rehearsing. So you can learn as much as possible, remember as much as possible, and be able to apply, very importantly, be able to apply as much as possible. So with reviewing, I reviewed everything that I wanted to remember on a schedule of a day later, a week later, a month later, and then every 6 months to maximize retention. You forget about 90% of what you learn unless you review it on a schedule approximately similar to that. I actually spent the first 6 months studying almost exclusively the neuroscience of learning and memory, so I'd be able to extract as much value from all this time that I was investing in this self-education as possible. And the third part of the process was to make sure that I could actually apply this information and use it. So I organized all the information into frameworks to contextualize it. So I'd have a persuasion framework, a negotiation framework, an innovation framework. So take negotiation. I figure negotiation is going to be worth millions of dollars to me over the course of my career. So I should at least be willing to put in 50 hours of deliberate practice to make sure that I can improve my negotiation skills. So I went through about a dozen books on the subject, took the 15 best ideas, like tactics, techniques, strategies, advice, put them into mnemonic devices, like acronyms, so I could remember them very quickly in a situation where I needed to, and then I'd practice replaying past negotiations in my head. I'd practice fictional negotiations in my head. So when I actually have a real negotiation, I've done it so many times that it comes naturally to me. And then the first time I negotiated a deal that was what I thought at the time was going to be 7 figures better than the deal that I would have negotiated without having that experience. It was a very rewarding, especially when you start calculating the hour of the dollar value of the time investment, the hourly rate on that.
Yeah.
Really can pay off.
That's the most aggressive thing I've ever heard in my life. Oh my God.
Don't know what
And you came up with that. You came up with that plan all by yourself, right? I mean, did you know anyone else that has ever done something so immersive and coming up with the frameworks? And I mean, that's just amazing.
I iterated into it. I didn't start off with this grand plan. It was just more like I want to learn about as many things as possible, and then I would jump from one topic to the next topic to the next topic, and then I just kept refining. And a lot of this came from that first 6 months that I spent studying how to learn effectively. And then once I learned how to learn effectively, then what to do for the next 3.5 years became much more obvious.
For the commoners over here, what do you mean you made acronyms and studied negotiation techniques.
Yeah, could you give us one example
Yeah.
so that we could negotiate?
Sure. So
better
the
tomorrow?
two best pieces of advice that I've ever seen in negotiation are, one, always ask for more than you expect to get. So if you always ask for more than you expect to get, you are much more likely to get better outcomes overall. The second thing would be you have to always project walkaway power. Like if the other party knows, there's a lot of caveats here, but if the other party knows that you have no best alternative to this deal, then they have you by the balls, effectively. So you can't ever let them know, even if they do, actually, you can't ever let them know that, or you give up all negotiating power you have. So I would I'd take ideas like that, and I'd put them into an acronym, and then I would just practice remembering those different ideas in the acronym, and then saying, okay, I would take it. Let's say I'm watching an episode of The West Wing. There's two heads of state that are negotiating. I might pause it and then say, okay, if I were party A, how would I have responded to this? If I were party B, how would I respond to this? And then I would just close my eyes and mentally play it out in my head so that I could get that vicarious experience.
That's awesome.
And the visualization, I mean, visualizing something embeds that in your mind, similar to experiencing it, right?
Exactly. Your brain cannot tell the difference between something you vividly imagine and something you actually experience. So you close your eyes and actually vividly place yourself into that situation. Your brain, as far as how your brain learns and remembers, can't tell the difference between that and a real experience with you negotiating, if you can put yourself into that mindset in a very close way.
So how did you go from MuggleNet to then Spartz?
So when I was studying virality, there wasn't a lot of research. Every field that I studied had their own sort of very specific view of virality, and so I started borrowing from different fields, studying network science, network theory, persuasion theory, borrowing little bits from epidemiology, physics, but mostly those three. And I hit on something that I thought was pretty big. It was the kind of insight that if I was an academic, I would have published a paper on it. But I'm not an academic, so I wanted to test out my theory. I thought I'd figured out a way to systematically engineer viral growth, make things go viral. And I started with Facebook as my first little petri dish, and I developed a series of algorithms designed to get Facebook pages to go viral. Created dozens of pages that went from 0 to millions of fans over a period of a few hours to a few days. So massively viral. And I kept shortening the viral loop until it got to the point where I could tell within 20 seconds if a page was going to go viral or not. And what I was basically doing was testing hundreds of different variables and seeing which variables correlated positively to virality. So I took the same ideas from Facebook to Twitter, got millions of followers on Twitter, YouTube, Tumblr, websites, apps. It didn't matter which platform. Every platform is different, but these were all network-level insights. So think like nodes, hubs, you see them in sticks, diagrams, things like that. So ultimately, we use a lot of the same principles in the websites that we build. It's hard to monetize Facebook pages. So the first website we launched was a site called Gives Me Hope. So I actually co-founded the company with my wife, Gabby. So Gabby, when she was 12, she founded Daily Cute, which is one of the top cute sites online. We met at Notre Dame the first week of school. I totally hit the jackpot.
Yeah, are you kidding me? Wait, you had time to meet a girl during all this?
It's funny, if you'd ask any of my friends at any point in my life, who's going to be the last person you know to get married, it would have been me. Guaranteed, every one of them would have said it.
I need to do something with my life. What am I doing?
Gabby, classic. We knew it.
So we founded Gives Me Hope. Gives Me Hope is a website where people share uplifting and inspiring true personal stories. So think like Chicken Soup for the Soul type stories that are one paragraph long. And Gives Me Hope went viral back in 2009. The website got millions of visitors, and we received literally thousands of letters from people saying that the stories on this website kept them from dropping out of school, saved their marriage, even brought them back from the verge of suicide. And we were getting letters from parents and teachers and brothers and sisters and sheriffs and people saying, like, your website literally saved my daughter's life or my mom's life because the stories were so inspiring that it actually got the reputation as being the other suicide hotline. So my goal, I mentioned, I want to change the world, and on a huge scale. And this is kind of like just a tiptoeing in that direction, being able to have that kind of impact on so many people's lives. And then the website did so well that we ended up spinning out an entire network of sites just like it. And one, like a website people share their love stories, a website people share their secrets. And those websites cumulatively have received over 500 million page views since we first launched them, something I'm very, very proud of. And then we realized that the model could be applied to other websites as well. So we launched OMG Facts, which is the #1 fact site. We started going to humor sites. So we've got like meme sites, the autocorrect site, all kinds of, just a wide variety of different things in that space. So the way our model works is that our audience creates about 5,000 pieces of content each day, and then we use crowd voting to identify the approximate viral coefficient of each piece of content, and then we publish the most viral stuff, basically the best stuff, to the homepage of the website. And then the user experience is really good because we're only publishing the cream of the crop of those 5,000 pieces of content.
So we've asked this to several people, but what does your day look like? Like, you're so busy. You wake up at 3:39 a.m.
What's
You
your
go to bed
bedtime?
at like Yeah, like what goes on in your normal day?
I'm up at 6. From 6 to 8:30, I spend on personal development. So this is that reading, reviewing, rehearsing, the same template. Although right now, reading isn't as valuable to me because most of the things I'm interested in, I've already read most of the stuff. So it's really more focused on review and rehearsal at this point. So I spend from 6 to 8:30 doing that. I'm in at work at 9. The workday is, I'd say, fairly standard for the kind of company that we are. It's a combination of meetings and emails and things like that. So I'll walk you through today, for example. So today had a couple interesting meetings. Like we have a new product that's a product that helps you meet people around in your area, and the engagement numbers are terrific. So we ran 2 A/B tests last week to try to get the engagement up, and we were discussing the results of those tests and what tests we wanted to propose and what the sample size should be for the next test we push. And it's all about like 100 users here, 200 users here, just to validate the test. So meeting about that, and meeting about what are we going to name our next site, and having a name storm, like coming up with all the names for the next site. Really fun stuff. And then, at 7 o'clock though that's when I shut off, unless I have some after work engagement, which I try to avoid because by 7 o'clock I'm pretty toast at that point, having just gone 13 straight hours. And that's when I shut off and I just do things that are totally unproductive. And
Sweet.
Yeah.
When's bedtime?
Bedtime is usually around 10:30.
We only ask because we asked Moog that.
This is the
Matt Moog.
but this is a classic. If you want a pattern, every single person we've interviewed, I think, said they go to bed around 10 or 10:30.
Yeah, and they get up fairly early. They
Yeah.
get ahead of everyone else that day. That's the trick. Is beating
That's one of the
everyone
most
each day.
common patterns of successful people is that they're up before everyone else. Like almost across the board.
A lot of people say they want to change the world, and there's only a few that I actually believe could do it. I think you're one of the guys that could actually follow through on that type of promise. So, I mean, what are like the big dreams? Like, what would you want to influence during your life?
That's a good question. So I have a lot of ideas. Ultimately, I want to be responsible for measurably and quantifiably improving the quality of life for 1 billion people. Now, that's just an arbitrarily huge number that personally inspires me. It just symbolizes the level of impact that I ultimately want to have. Now, in terms of how to do that and what kind of impact to have, I've got a ton of ideas for doing that, but it's too early to start really devoting a lot of my time to it. Because of all this time that I spent studying influence, one really big conclusion I reached was that when I mentioned how important influence is for creating the kind of impact that I'd be interested in. And I learned that wealth and influence scale logarithmically, which basically means that it's just as easy, like for example, once you have $1 million, it's just as easy to go from $1 million to $10 million as it is to go from $10 million to $100 million. And accordingly with influence, because the more wealth you have, the more opportunities you have to create more wealth, and the more influence you are, the more opportunities there are to create more influence. So right now, if I try to go and start solving problems, like Bill Gates, for example, who is somebody that I look up to and I admire greatly, and I think what the Gates Foundation is doing is super inspiring. Bill Gates, I could spend 100% of my time right now trying to solve some global issue, and Bill Gates could spend 5% of his time and solve it 3 times faster because he's so influential. He's got speed dial with prime ministers and and presidents and billionaires that he can just raise billions of dollars, and there's just the level that we can actually accomplish is different. So ultimately, I have a very utilitarian philosophical view on the greatest good for the greatest number, and so the places I tend to agree with the Gates Foundation in terms of where the greatest global impact occurs. Sub-Saharan Africa, Southeast Asia, tropical diseases is one of the lowest hanging fruit things we can do to improve the general well-being of humanity. I mean, a couple $100 million invested in the right places can literally save millions and millions of lives. Like what the Gates Foundation is on track to literally directly save 10 million lives this decade. Not indirectly, directly save. And they're being very conservative how they're calculating that. When you start calculating the effects that has on the world to save 10 million lives, you measure that in trillions of dollars. Trillions of dollars of benefit to the world because of all the effects that has on, as soon as people, like for example, all these interrelated chain events, like you get infant mortality rates down, and then, people start having less kids in developing countries. They have less kids, it means they can send their kids to college. They send their kids to school. Send their kids to school, then they get good jobs. They get good jobs, they stop having to work on farms. They start working in cities. They start, and they just get on the economic development ladder, and then, society changes. So ultimately, I've spent a lot of time studying those things, but it's too early for me to start focusing too much on that because it's more important that I build up enough influence to be able to solve more of the problems and on a larger scale. If I start doing it now, then the overall impact that I'll create will be much, much less.
Makes sense.
It's now time for the most important question. Are you prepared?
I'm prepared.
What is your favorite type of bagel, and how do you like it prepared?
So I'm considering a heretical answer.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not a huge fan of bagels.
Had to
Donuts.
come. The
Donuts.
day had to come.
The reason why is not because I don't think they taste good, because I think they do.
Oh.
But I think bagels provide a poor caloric ROI.
Oh my gosh.
Bagels have so many calories in them relative to the like I enjoy them, but I'd maybe give them a 7 or an 8 in terms of how much I enjoy them. But
Out of 10?
I'd rather have a donut for the same amount of calories, right? I consider donuts to be a lot more delicious than bagels, and in terms of the number of calories, and that's not the only thing you look at. Obviously, there's more to it. It's not saying a bagel is less healthy than a donut, but there's other things that provide a better caloric ROI.
Was anyone else expecting
This is the classic Emerson answer. Classic.
Everything's broken down.
This guy has already read 97 books on bagels.
Food nutrition. That was like sophomore year at Notre Dame.
It's like I slept through that class.
Damn it.
That was actually a few months in sophomore year.
You see what just happened?
Couldn't have been a better answer than that, I swear to God.
New York City Bagel Deli, please cover your ears. Well, Emerson, thanks so much for coming in and talking to us about your legacy that has already begun. We're very excited to see what you'll do next and fall victim to your next viral campaign.
If there's anything you can do to get 1 million likes on Facebook for Bites Over Bagels, we'd be happy.
We would love your
love that.
consultation.
You'll give me what, bagels?
No.
Yes.
Rubens.
Donuts.
As many as you can eat.
Donuts and Rubens. Rest of your life.
Well, thanks for coming in, man, and best of luck.
Thank you.
Filling in the gaps today is J.C. Brooks in the Uptown Sound. Check him out at jcbrooksintheuptownsound.com or on bitesoverbagels.com.
And that concludes episode 15 of
Bites Over Bagels!
Join us on the show next week where we'll feature
Michael Timponi, the Pony.
Whoa.
CMO and co-founder of Kapow Events.
It's a great interview. Per usual, you can check us out at bitesoverbagels.com. We've got a Twitter, we've got an Instagram, we have a Facebook. There's information there. There's pictures. There's sentiments. No?
Hate mail.
Ooh. And also voting for Chicago Tech Startup Madness. Don't forget, these startups are relying on you to push them forward through the bracket. So check out the website. You can vote there or listen to the show and you can hashtag it out. That concludes today's episode. Have a good morning.